Hello and welcome back. I'm Ishani, and if you're coming from Adith's channel, thank you so much for stopping by. I have planned to show you 7 cards with various techniques which are made for the men in our lives. I'll be focusing just on one stencil and delve into different techniques that you can use for your upcoming projects and can swap with any stencil from your stash. I'll also be using various colored cardstock and make most of our supplies. Let's go ahead and see our first card. I'm starting with the card for my son, so let's start with the card for kids. And with switching the colors, you can make it a feminine card or for a girl. I'm going to protect my surface before I start playing, so I have this non-stick craft mat which I have on my surface, and I'm going to use an embossing paste. You can use any embossing paste you have in your stash, or also if you have snow paste or any other kind of mixed media paste, you can use that. I'm taking a light blue colored cardstock, and for embossing on my cardstock, I need to fix it with a washi tape under my stencil. When you adhere your stencil this way, most of the embossing paste gets onto your cardstock and none of it is wasted, or at least very little is wasted. But before I add my embossing paste, I want to create some interest, and I want to create a little ombre background. It will be a monochromatic background. And I've taken this blue dye ink which I'm going to put on my surface, and with the embossing paste I'm going to add this blue. This way I will have 3 types of embossing pastes, where one is white, the other one is a lighter blue, and a little darker is the third batch. But before I apply my embossing paste, I am going to add this little sparkle powder that I have, this fairy dust. This is from an Indian brand. You may use other brands. I know Simon Says Stamp has some unicorn dust, and Nuvo also has some glitter dust. You can add those in your embossing paste and make a shimmery paste, like how we have this Faber-Castell shimmer paste. I don't know if you've seen it. It's got a beautiful shimmer, but we can also create ourselves. After I apply my embossing paste, I'm also going to again put on the fairy dust over the embossing paste and just gently swipe it with my palette knife. This will let it embed inside the embossing paste, and it will not fly or be transferred on your fingers. And now it's time to reveal. I'll gently peel off my stencil off the cardstock, and there is this beautiful shimmer, and I let it dry. And after drying, this is how it looks. I love the little imperfections of the dots and also the ombre look that we have got here. Also, to make it a little playful card for a kid, I have these beautiful dies by a company that sadly retired, Paper Smoochers. This is a kite. I'm sure you have something similar in your stash, something for your child, a sport, maybe a jersey. You can do anything you like. What I want to showcase is that a polka dot background is a perfect playful background for a card like this. And I take my little kite, I adhere it. I also have this string that is from a Spellbinders Club kit, and add the little bows on my kite. For the sentiment, I have this Way to Go from Simon Says Stamp, and I stamp it on a white cardstock with black ink, trim it, and this will be my sentiment which I'm going to mount on foam tape. The whole panel is ready, and I now take 3D foam tape and adhere it on a top folding white colored cardstock. And here we have a very quick and beautiful fun card ready in just matter of minutes. It just took some time to dry the embossing paste, but that's it. Okay, let's go ahead and make our second card. We will continue playing with the embossing paste, and this time I'm taking a dark teal color and I adhere it similarly with washi tape behind my cardstock and stencil. And this time I take acrylic paint. I'm taking gold acrylic paint and I'm adding it onto my embossing paste, and I want to create this gold polka dots on my teal background. Okay, so I was planning to make a masculine card, like all my cards be masculine. You may differ after I make this card, but then I've got a story behind this card as well. You know, how come it is a masculine card, even if you may not agree? So I take my embossing paste, and this embossing paste spreads like smooth butter. Oh, so it's lovely to play with this embossing paste. But don't worry, this is just the last card with embossing paste today. I put all my golden embossing paste over the cardstock and then add just a little paint, gold paint over it, like how we did with fairy dust. This way the paint sits on the top and gives the luster which is not there when it is inside the embossing paste. I gently peel off the stencil, and here we have a beautiful polka dot in gold ready, and we'll let it dry first. By the time the embossing paste is getting dried, let us get to some die cutting. I'm going to use this designer paper for my card, and I have this beautiful Pen Pal fountain pen dies by Greetree that I'm going to use for this card. I have die cut my pen from one of the pretty papers from this pack, and I've also die cut it in teal cardstock because I want some structure to the fountain pen. And when I adhere the pattern paper over my cardstock, it gives a good body to the pen. I use glue to adhere all the little pieces of my fountain pen, and I really wanted to add into the gold theme of my polka dots, so I've used gold mirror cardstock for my nibs and the accents of the fountain pen. Now that our panel is dry, let's go ahead and assemble the card. Because I have a fountain pen, I looked for a stamp which had scripty sentiments. So this stamp set by Altenew has this beautiful congratulations and good luck in a scripty way, and I thought I'll stamp the good luck. To add more interest to my card, I'm also going to cut out a paper from the same paper pack that I used for my pen, and I've taken this floral, right corner floral area to die cut. I'm going to die cut my designer paper with this frayed edge die that I have to imitate like a letter, and I have this beautiful torn page stitching die that I'm going to cut my designer paper with just at the edge, and I'm going to cut it in a way that it does not cut out the whole sheet. So when I die cut it, I want it to still be adhered to the paper, like how we want to tear off the sheet but we've not torn it fully, that ways. And I'm going to add my paper at an angle so that I have some place for my fountain pen also to rest near the paper. And I know it is not the right thing for me to show on my YouTube channel, but yes, I am a little stingy when it comes to beautiful paper, and this teal cardstock looks beautiful with this gold polka dots. So I'm just going to take off the part which will not be seen. So I'm just cutting it off. Please, no judgment, please, please. And also I go ahead and stamp my sentiment good luck. And it did not stamp beautifully. You know why? Because I've got a pen with me, a fountain pen. I should be writing it myself. So God wanted it and I'm doing it, and I fill in the blanks. Or this is how it is said, like complete the whole good luck. Alright, then I chop off the excess and adhere my front panel onto a teal colored card base. And then I adhere my pretty fountain pen on the sides with the cap at its end. And now, you know how is it a masculine card? Because a man is writing for his lady. A gentleman is writing for his lady with his beautiful pen, and he wanted it to be a floral cardstock or like floral notepad because his lady likes flowers, right? And I just want this beautiful texture of the notepad being ripped off, the paper being ripped off, like it's not ripped off, but it's not even stuck. You know, do you like it? I love this way of adding texture to this card. I hope you like it. And I think this is my favorite. There are more cards, but you have to tell me which one was your favorite. Next is the quick way to make an ombre background. You know these beautiful family of inks that come in like 3s and 4s? They are a great way to add ombre to your card. For this card, I'm going to do selective stenciling. So for this, I'm using these 4 colors of blue, and I protect my lower portion of the cardstock with a scrap paper. You can use washi tape or you can use masking paper, and on top I'm going to use this washi tape, and I have decided to go 2 columns of my polka dots with each color. So I start with the darker color, which is Starlight, and I start on the extreme left, and then I will have 2 rows of these polka dots dedicated to each color. This will create a gradient ombre look on our cardstock, and because we are selectively stenciling only few of the polka dots, it gives a great design also. Everybody does ink blending. What's special in this? Okay, let us go ahead and take the same pen we used earlier and add a little interest onto our polka dots. I'm going to trace the circle of my stencils, some over around the polka dots like so. And this is just random. I'm not thinking of 2 here or 3 there, just randomly. And after I have done some tracing of the circles on the blue circles, I'm going to move my stencil a little off, like offset it, and then create some more lines around these small polka dots. This will create a little more interest onto our polka dots, and it's just not ink blending, it is more than that. So get out your pen and just trace around your stencils, and it will create more beautiful patterns. I plan to do a little nautical theme for this card, and I'm going to stamp congrats. These are like bold typographic letters, and I'm stamping it just the way I have ink blended on an angle. And here I have a beautiful die by Simon Says Stamp, which I have die cut this anchor with the dark blue cardstock and 2 white cardstocks, and I have adhered all the 3 layers together to build a little body for my anchor, and added a little rope, a silver rope, onto its end. I add my anchor onto the bottom of my card at an angle, and I adhere the anchor as well as a little rope that will be on the cardstock with glue, and cut off the excess of the cord. To finish off the card, I have a top folded dark blue colored cardstock, same as of my anchor, and I adhere my beautiful ink blended panel with the anchor on it with double-sided strong tape. And isn't this a quick and simple card? Perfect to congratulate somebody, a sailor maybe? And before we move to the next card, I want to invite you and subscribe to my channel. Also check out my work on Instagram and my blog. I'm also a certified Altenew educator, and I take live Zoom classes. So if you subscribe to my blog, you would come to know when I have my next class. Also, I share a lot on Instagram, so I hope you will check it out. So next card, I'm going to do a very interesting stenciling technique. It's called reverse stenciling. For this, first we'll create a background. I am using Distress Oxide inks because they blend beautifully, and here I have taken some yellows, greens and blues, and I'm blending it at an angle. And I'll just speed it up because my video is getting a little long. So let's go ahead and get on to the technique. After my background is ready, I put my stencil over it, and I'm going to ink blend black color on through my stencil. I start with a pigment based ink. This is Altenew's Permanent Black Crisp ink, and I'm just showing it to you because I want to show you the mistake I made. This is a pigment based ink, which is a good ink for this kind of stenciling, but this is not dark enough. So after I add my black layer with the Permanent Black Crisp ink,
Then I took out Obsidian Pigment Ink by Altenew, and then I went again over these black dots with my Obsidian Pigment Ink, which is a darker black, and there I get the stark contrast of the black polka dots and the beautiful ink blended background that I have of bright colors in my background. This is a great idea of creating a different looking background. This will look beautiful with different motifs and other designs on stencils. Now that I have my background ready, let us just go ahead and quickly finish off the card. I have taken a tag of white cardstock, and I have these beautiful bunting dies by Sunny Studios, and I'm going to use the colors of my background, die cut the same with paper, and make my buntings in the similar colors. Also, because I want to use a sentiment which is a very fun sentiment about eating cake, I also stamp a little cake slice in yellow, and then over it I stamp with my black ink. So birth is our nature's way of telling us to eat more cake, and I have my cake in the background and little celebratory buntings around it. I also die cut the similar tag in dark blue color, and to camouflage the oopsie that I had, I am adding a little bow of black ribbon to tie these two tags together. I add my tags with the little foam tape in the center of my beautiful background. And I hope you like this reverse stencil technique and would try the same with your stencils. Let's go ahead and quickly see our next card. For the next card, I have taken one rectangular piece of watercolored cardstock, and I'm going to play with my brushes. But if you have your Lindy Magicals or any other pigmented powders, this is the perfect time to get them out. We're going to use our polka dot stencil to create a bouquet or bouquet, whatever you say. And I am creating this beautiful background by sprinkling some Prussian blue in the center of the cardstock and some canary yellow onto the sides. And when I apply a little spritz of water, my pigments react and then create this beautiful organic watercolor look. And wherever the blue and the yellows mix, it creates a beautiful green. I also take another scrap piece of watercolor cardstock to not let the extra color go wasted, and then have some extra for my future cards. I blot off the excess and then let my paper dry. After my paper has dried, I am going to use this beautiful layering stamp, that is a color layering Pier at the Lake stamp set by Hero Arts, and I'm going to stamp my Pier with two different dark gray inks. I also noticed that my stamping has not come very perfect, so for that I am going to take some sketch pens and just fill in the gaps of the Pier and make it look more sturdy, and it is silhouette stamping, so I don't want much color on it. I should have actually just stamped with black. You can do that, and also you can heat emboss your black stamped image. Next I stamp my boy, and that also in retrospect I should have clear heat embossed. And after stamping the boy, I take Distress Oxide in blue and go around the edges of my panel. On top I'm adding blue, and on bottom I have some black ink from the previous card on my little brush, and I add the same black onto the sides. Now that I have some ink on my card panel, I am taking my polka dot stencil, and with a darker blue ink I am going around the image of the boy, just so that all the bokeh make you center your gaze onto the boy. I have the blue polka dots, and then I'm going to add little polka dots with pigment white pigment ink. And this is what will create more interest in your image. For the sentiment, I have Hooray for You that I stamped with black obsidian ink again, but you should also clear heat emboss it because I'm using a watercolor cardstock and the ink absorbs into it. So after some time, it is not standing out. When you do this technique, remember to do some clear heat embossing on your sentiment. For assembling the card, I have a white mat which I'm going to add just behind my watercolor cardstock, and I adhere the whole little panel on a dark green top folding card base. Also, I have a little area which is not black, which I go in and complete with a black colored ink pen. And here is my next card, which is mixed media feel and getting more out of your polka dot stencil. For the next card, we are doing some offset shadow stenciling along with double stenciling. Now for this, first I adhere my polka dot stencil onto a craft card base, and over this I'm going to use a rectangular stencil. This will create a lovely frame around our stencil. Then I take a dauber and apply my white pigment ink through the polka dot stencil onto the craft cardstock. I do it twice, so I have a good layer of white over my craft cardstock. Next step is drying off your pigment ink properly. You can use a heat tool for it, or you could also just let it be for a night and dry it naturally. Once again I place my stencil, but now I offset it. I move my stencil a little up, so I have a little shadow of white which is underneath the stencil right now, but will create a beautiful shadow. So for the offset shadow stenciling, we offset our stencil a little on the side, and then with turquoise ink I am blending onto the craft cardstock. After this, I go ahead with Starlight. I do not move my stencil this time. Now I just want to color on the top right of my little polka dots, for which I am ink blending with a little angle on with my blending brush, making sure that more ink is on the upper corner. With the ink blending done, we take off to see the reveal, and we have a beautiful shadow of white onto one side and darker polkas on the upper side. Now we have so much of blue on top of our stencils, for which I just spritz some water and place it on a cardstock so that we have a little pattern on a white colored cardstock and not let our inks go waste. And with our background ready, the only thing left is adding some mustache. I have this Paper Smooches mustache that I die cut with black cardstock and stamped happy birthday on a black colored cardstock and heat embossed with white to finish off my card. I hope you like this card as well. Quick and simple, but a beautiful technique that you must try for your next card. Okay, I must confess, I still believe. I was having so much fun with polka dots that I had totally forgotten about this very quick and simple technique that I love to do. Just 2 more minutes. It is heat embossing on a colored cardstock, for which I take a dark teal cardstock and I put some anti-static powder all over it, add my stencil on it, and with ink dauber I add Versamark. Any sticky ink works, all the embossing ink works for it. And then I take clear embossing powder, sprinkle onto these polka dots. Now I had a design in mind when I was creating these polka dots. I'm going to adhere this beautiful die cut tree, which I have cut with white cardstock twice and with teal cardstock. I adhere them all, and now when I will place it on my cardstock, it is as if only the area where the shadow or the protection of the tree is, there is no polka dots. And then I stamp God bless with Versamark and then heat emboss with white embossing powder. Do you get it? So I have thought of this card as all the difficulties that the world throws at you. With the God's blessings, nothing will harm you. God is like this tree. God will protect. Also, I die cut my cardstock with a beautiful frame die, and I mount it on a white colored cardstock for the contrast of teal and white of the die cut, the sentiment, and my bottom layer. I am hoping you liked my cards and will visit me again for my next video, which is coming soon. And thank you so much for watching. If you've not come via Ardith,
Here is the link to her video, which you have to watch. Thank you so much for stopping by. Do not forget to subscribe and happy crafting.